Welcome to the Easton.Online podcast. I'm your host, Elliot Marshall. And what this podcast is here to do, it's here to help you gain strategies and tactics and tools that are going to help you grow in your martial arts business. If you have a martial arts school, a gym, this is one of my passions, is how we spread the message of how to really grow culture and business and some ways that we do it the best with our people, with our staff, with our clients. So I hope you enjoy. Give a listen. What up?
Not much, man.
It's been a minute, as we just saw.
Technical issues.
No technical issues, just technical failure. So I haven't, as we said in the first episode that lasted 2 minutes.
How are those editing skills now?
Jordan's doing this, man. Okay. So yeah, this was a little shaky in the beginning. Had to remember how to do it. Haven't done a live podcast in a while, but here we go.
Ready to get into it.
All right. So as we were speaking, your martial arts journey started with like most people, Ultimate Fighter Season 1.
Yeah. So I was in high school, and I'd wrestled since junior high, so 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way up to my junior year. All of those seasons were terrible, just huge losing records. I'm still probably overall losing record from how many
like if you took everything, jiu-jitsu matches and everything you lost so much.
That many. Like I just barely scraped by. I don't know what made me keep showing up and going. I liked it, I guess. Like I loved it. But it was my junior year of high school. Obviously like towards the end of wrestling season, or maybe a little bit after when the season aired, and got immediately addicted to the show with a couple of the guys from the team. We'd always talk about it, and then I still knew nothing about the sport. It was brand new to a lot of people. My only other exposure to it was Mark Kerr and the Smashing Machine, and he was actually from my hometown. So like I always thought that was kind of cool. I saw it on HBO or something when I was a kid. But this was the first real exposure to it.
And where in Ohio?
Toledo, okay. Yeah. So it's actually kind of funny. Like as I started training later on, we'll get into it, but Sal and Sanji were up there the whole time I was around. But the finale.
Move closer.
Oh, sorry. The finale was obviously Stephen Bonner, Forrest Griffin, but also Rich Franklin and Ken Shamrock. So I'm watching that, and I see that, hey, Rich is this high school teacher from Ohio who's out doing this thing. And it was, to me, the 17-year-old Chris, the coolest thing ever. And right after that, I just wanted to start getting into a little bit more. And I went to the Police Athletic Boxing League in the hood in Toledo. It was a good time there. Got punched in the face for the first time. And then really I thought that was it. I finished my senior year. The following year actually had a winning season. So that was cool for once. And then went to college and thought that was it. I was just on the club team for wrestling there. And my first summer back.
Where'd you go to college?
Miami University in Ohio. Yeah. Okay. It's a really good school, business school. And so I was on the club team there, and
I know it only because a kid that I graduated with and played high school basketball with, he's the only D1 athlete that went D1 for the year that we graduated. So it's like everyone, you just remember that shit.
Oh yeah. Like, I don't know what, like Ben Roethlisberger was out there. They really only had a good hockey team. That was it.
Yeah, I won't call him my friend, but the kid who I went to high school with, he went to play football.
Okay.
So
that's probably way before my time.
Yeah, a little bit. But it's always cool. You always remember those things, right? Like when unless you have just like a stupidly good high school, but like if only one kid goes D1, then you're like, oh, that kid went D1.
Oh yeah, like my it's kind of weird. The one kid from our football team in high school, he's a grade or two below me, but he actually like walked on to Stanford and then ended up in the NFL, and then he was the vegan spokesperson for PETA in the NFL.
What is his name?
Griff Whalen. Yeah. I forget who he played for already, but
Somebody got into Stanford.
Yeah,
and then walked on the
team, and then got in the
went to the NFL.
Yeah,
that's a cool story.
Yeah, it was just crazy seeing him on a PETA commercial too, right. Especially in the NFL. But so anyway, I thought that was about it, and I was home for my first summer. I guess my only summer home in college, and ran into he wasn't my high school wrestling coach, but he was one of the high schools that practiced with us occasionally. And just like, hey, we're opening up this, gym and doing some of that MMA stuff. You want to go? And I was like, absolutely, I do. And just jumped right in. It was a little, man, like I can't even, the mat room was probably twice the size of the room we're in right now.
Nice.
Just downtown, sketchy part of Toledo. Just had a bunch of guys, and most of them didn't have any experience outside of wrestling. But then there was one old, he's probably late 40s, guy from Spain named Carlos, who had kickboxing experience, and he would beat the crap out of me. And then there was, he was a purple belt at the time, Dion Thompson. And he was under Salo before they moved away. But so actually, they were there for so many years before I even knew what jiu-jitsu was.
Dude, how the fuck did Salo and Shunji end up in Toledo?
They were with a guy named Chris Blanky, but I still have no idea. Yeah. It's Toledo. There's nothing to do there except grow up.
Yeah, crazy.
But
anyway,
so they moved to San Diego about 3 months before I started training.
Okay.
And they were there for years. So it's one of those things you look back on and you're like, oh, I missed a huge opportunity, but I'm here now. So
yeah, it's always one that whole idea of missing a huge opportunity. We all, we're all mad about the girl that we blew it with, right? God, why did I say that? Right. But that's part of the lesson.
It happens. But yeah, it turned out well. I'm, like I said, I'm here. And then from that garage gym, after a month of training, it was just like, hey,
oh God, no. You see, I'm such a rookie right now. What do we got?
We good? All right.
So just pick up after the garage gym.
Yeah. So, after about a month of training in that garage gym, so it would have been middle of May that I started there after I got home. And then it was June, late June, that I had my first fight. They were just like, hey, you want to do it? And I was like,
how long?
A month and a half.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
They brought you up right, son.
Absolutely, I do. And we were just beating the crap out of each other. I have the video somewhere, but I watched that first fight and just kind of cringed.
Did you win?
Oh yeah. And it was immediate. My thought process was, I just want to do it, just to see what it's like, and that'll be it. And none of this was ever planned. But
what did your parents think at this time?
More worried than anything else, I'd say. My dad knew he wasn't gonna talk me out of it. I'm stubborn. All of the Mierzwiaks are. But he was, texting me, trying to call me before the fight, after, but it was down.
Because your dad's a doctor, right?
Oh yeah.
So a doctor's kid is going to fight. All right. Word.
Oh yeah. And up until that point too, after the fight I changed, I was pre-med before that.
So my kid is about to be a doctor and he's going to get in a dumb cage.
Yeah. And I had, I don't want to say way better grades when I was pre-med, but I did better in science. So it was all right, this is out. Won that first fight down in Kentucky. And it was pre-commission days. So I'll never forget it. There was legit a guy in the warm-up room, back locker room during the rules meeting, and just talking shit about how he boxed for the Navy, all this stuff, and really talking himself up, 40-0. And then he was the fight right before me. Comes back, and I'm about to walk out, and he's just covered in blood,
worst.
Head down in shame, and just goes, I bobbed when I should have weaved. And I was just like, all right, we're doing this, and go out there. And I think it was a second round rear naked choke that I ended up getting him. I took him down. I actually threw a nice body kick. That was the only like good thing I did on my feet. But yeah, I was hooked immediately. And it's also where I met George Gurgel. So he was my ref for that fight. And it's funny. The very first thing he said to me, because I fought 185 for the amateur days and up until a few pro fights, he goes, "You're way too small for a 185." Like he's like, Rich Franklin's so big. And he still calls me skinny to this day and says I need to get bigger.
Because your first fight.
Yeah.
Because you're not a 185er.
Well, no, just because he thinks I look skinny for some reason and has since the day he met me. But
but he thinks you look skinny because you're not a 185er.
I went to 170 after that. But still, like, even no matter where I was, I need to get bigger.
You need to get bigger. Gotcha.
It's just funny because he always brings it up. And I always have to remind him that.
So did you start training with him right away?
So I had another fight that summer, second one, and actually lost that one. It wasn't a TKO, but I got a really bad concussion, got elbowed pretty bad, split my eye open. My eyelid actually turned inside out. They thought they would have to give me surgery. But George was my ref for that fight, and he still like invited me down to training. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's 15 minutes from the academy, like your school is. And, you can come train all you want." And in reality, it was about, 45, 50 minute drive every day. And didn't matter. Like I went back to school. I took my car down the next year and that's what I did. I was going to class in the morning. I made my schedule around training and just started showing up and then they couldn't get rid of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So what was Gurgel's like at that time? Because like you said, Rich Franklin, right? Like it was the heyday of Rich Franklin.
Oh man. So like obviously I walked in, I'm starstruck because George was just on the second season that I watched, and Rich is there, and then it was right around the time that Matt was on the show also, Matt Brown.
Okay.
So
Matt was the season before me.
Yeah. So yeah,
Matt was season 7. I was season 8.
Yeah, so that would have been like probably right around that same year because we moved locations. That's
08.
Kind of how it. Okay, yeah.
So Matt was 07. I was. Yeah, so my season filmed. Yeah, spring summer of 08. So Matt was winter 07.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's crazy to think how long ago all that was now. But
fuck, we're 6 weeks of my life.
I had so many friends go through it and just various stories about how.
Did anybody like it?
Nothing sticks out as remembering that. Like remembering someone say they absolutely loved it. Maybe one guy just because it was, I think Justin Edwards might have.
Was he broke?
Probably we all were, but he was trying to make it. But
dude, if you're broke and living in your mom's basement.
Yeah, I think I remember him saying it was just like, going away to fight camp the whole time.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just depends on where you were in your life.
And then he was on the season that you coached on too. Yeah. I miss that dude. I miss all of them, man. He
was on the other team.
Yeah, he was. There's a really good meme where that fight in the hallway happened and Eddie just has this smirk on his face. It's
Eddie.
Like Justin Edwards.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So you call him Eddie.
Yeah. But yeah, so him, Matt, Luke Zachrich, who was on Matt's season 2 was there, Dustin Hazlett. So like all these guys,
these Ohio guys.
Yeah. I mean, like Kentucky, like they moved there because that was the big team. I mean, Mitrione came up occasionally. Chris Lytle. It's kind of like the sparring sessions now, but it was the first, like, I felt like super camp with all these guys that were ranked that high, like at the same time coming together to train a bunch.
It's weird because nobody knows that.
Yeah, it was way back, and George is there, and then we had Dorian Price. Eventually,
Matt loves Dorian Price.
Oh, Dorian is the man. Like, he's such a monster, and just I don't know if like flies under the radar kind of, but dude, he is the scariest person to spar with in the world. Just so bony. But yeah, I got beat up by those guys from the time I was 19 until I moved out here in 2013. And just, man, so many good experiences. And I look back at where it all started, and it's funny because I just started, going with it. And the one thing that I'll say that really made me flip the switch and say, all right, I'm serious about this, is it was a near death experience. I was sparring with Dustin Hazlett. I was still an amateur. And we were getting him ready. He was originally supposed to fight Carl Parisian. So judo guy.
Judo, yeah.
They had me trying to mimic his style and just jump in, clinch him up against the wall. And Dorian's there he's Dustin's striking coach, so he's on him. And he's trying to have him, time body kicks and knees as that's coming in, as I'm looping in.
Good for you.
Oh yeah, it was great. Ended up rupturing my small intestine. Had to get emergency surgery.
Do you have health insurance?
Still on my parents.
All right. So now I just asked if you had it. That's all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So I got lucky there. But yeah, I ruptured it. They took 1.5 liters of everything out of my stomach cavity. At first it felt like a body shot. I actually have to give a shout out to Matt Dunlap, one of my other training partners, saved my life from stopping me from driving home. He'd be mad if I didn't mention that. But he reminds me every year on the anniversary. But the body shot feeling didn't go away. And I was just like, all right, I'm done sparring. I'm going to go, drive back to school, go to class. And guys were still training on the mat. And he stopped me on the way out and just says, hey, man, you look, really pale, like you're going to pass out or something. Just don't worry about going to class. Lay down on the couch until you feel better and then go back after. So when I did that, I put my feet up and that's when everything spilled out inside me. So it went from body shot feeling that was just lingering to the alien bursting out of the chest from the movies.
Yeah.
Literally passing out from pain, in and out of consciousness, cussing at the ambulance drivers every time they hit a bump. And then our last thing I remember was getting to the ER in downtown Cincinnati and doctor saying that I ruptured something, needed emergency surgery, and asked if that was all right and like to call my dad. I just said, yeah, do it. And I remember just throwing up blood and whatever else all over a nurse. And then waking up like almost a day later,
right?
Missing 8 inches of intestine. But
so how did this convince you? You say this convinced you that you wanted to do this?
Yeah, man. Fighters were crazy a little bit, I guess, but it was just one of those moments where the first thing back, like in my mind, was wanting to get back on the mat, and that it wasn't that long of a recovery. It was about, I think it was 8 or 9 weeks only, even after all that. And I went down to see the surgeon, and he cleared me, said, you're good to go. It might suck a little bit, until the scar tissue breaks up and everything there. And the very first thing I did, I left his office and I went into the gym to spar. And there was Dorian Price, and he drops me with a spinning back elbow. And that was just like, with that, he was just like, oh man, I'm not going to kick your knee in the body. So I'll put on my elbow pads. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like a good idea. But yeah, it was just, I don't know.
This is the old days, man. This is the old days of MMA because fuck, we just beat each other up.
Oh yeah.
Like we trained and we learned and all that stuff, but it's not like it is now.
Oh yeah. And like, especially with those guys, like
it's not even those guys. It was everywhere.
Yeah. But like
when I used to go to Jackson's, bro, it was 20 rounds.
Oh yeah, that's a lot.
Like 20, maybe 15, but it's like you don't do that anymore.
Yeah, the hard sparring days, we were just doing it way too much. And after I moved out here and I slowed it down a little bit, I just felt my improvement, just the rate I was getting better, just go so much faster.
No hard sparring. No, we didn't hard spar all the time.
I added a lot more flow, like flow drills, flow sparring, flow roll, all that, and it was a huge help.
It gives you time to make mistakes. Like when all you do is go really, really hard, the consequence is too high. It's like, holy fuck, I might get my head kicked off, or dropped out, or dropped with an elbow, or my gut split open by
by jumping into a knee.
Right, because it's just that consequence is too hard. When you bring the level down, you go, okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again until you actually get it.
Yeah, didn't know that back then.
Not that we.
Yeah, it's definitely very beneficial now, but live and you learn.
Yeah. So you came out here for elevation?
No. So I actually like through all that after I made that switch and said I'm really going for that.
And now you're a purple belt at this time, right? When you came out?
Yeah, I was. I had gotten it in April and I'd moved out here in August, I think. 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, so almost my 7-year anniversary. But I'd gotten a chance to fight for Strikeforce, Bellator, and those were really my big shots, and lost in both. Bellator won. It's a loss. I wasn't impressed with the fight, but the Strikeforce fight versus Dom Steele, who actually came out and stayed with us for a month,
right.
Lost that one. But man, that was one of those fights where you look at and you're like, hell yeah, like I can't believe it. Like I didn't know I had that in me. And just one of those moments where you define yourself on it. Like I know who I am a little bit better because of that fight. But even so, I had that, and then I just saw a couple of the other guys that had lingered around a little too much and just hadn't moved on, and watching them fight and lose and just kind of the heartbreak and all that stuff, I was like, all right, it's time. Didn't know what I was gonna do, still in Ohio, and then I had still with my college girlfriend, we were living together, and just kind of figured out we wanted different things out of life. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew she wanted to move back to Eastern Ohio, and that wasn't for me. And 10 minutes after that conversation, my two best friends gave me a call and say, "Hey, moving out to Denver. You want to go?" And I pretty much decided to retire, see what kind of career I could make and all that, and just on a whim, let's do it. So I was the first one out, and then at that point I wasn't planning on fighting anymore, and I had a suit and tie job that I did every day, and absolutely hated it.
Here,
yeah.
What was it?
So it was at a tech recruiting company.
Okay.
Yeah, it was rough, and I was training. It was pretty close to Hama, to high altitude. So I would just go over there and train after work every day, and it was like right around the time I started coming to Elevation too. But you guys, it was at Cody, Vinny, and I forget who else, but I met everyone when I cornered Justin Edwards against Thatch in his debut.
I was there. I cornered Thatch.
Okay, so
Indianapolis, right?
Yep. So I remember it was Cody I talked to.
Who did Cody corner?
He was there.
How was he there? No, he wasn't. It was Leister. Cody wasn't there.
Promise you it was Cody, because he invited me out. He's the one. He's like, man, yeah, come train with us. I remember his beard. Leister doesn't have a beard.
What the fuck was Cody doing there?
I don't know. He's part of the team, but yeah.
ahead.
So like just beat my teammate, guy that came up beating me up. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go train with these guys, obviously.
Because you were already living in Denver.
No, that was the weekend before I moved out.
Okay.
I cornered Justin,
and then you came out.
and then I drove out the next day.
Got some shitty job.
They got mad at me for having a black eye that I got at Hama.
Right.
And that's
So you
when
told him to fuck off.
well, that's when I knew I had to look for another job.
Kick rocks, motherfucker.
Yeah, I got a nice big toe to the eye, head kick. So started literally Googling other jobs on my phone in my car on my lunch break. Because I just didn't have the money or bandwidth to quit and then have that time off. So that's when I found Zen Planner.
Okay.
So software company, martial arts world. I just Googled best places to work. It's like, hey, we're looking for someone with martial arts experience and sales experience. And then it's like, hey, that's me.
Right.
And went on a really cool time when it was a really young company. I think I was the 35th hire. And they were stoked to have me on. Like really got hired because of my fighting experience, which was awesome. So I fit in there, felt at home right away, and then just started growing with the company and trying to fight, compete, and do jiu-jitsu as much as possible through it out here. So
then your time at Zen Planner, you learned a lot.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah, you learned a lot. It was very, very useful.
Way more than I even realize until I still like something will come up and it's like, oh man, I ran into this situation in there. But the really it was the dream job for someone who was jiu-jitsu and MMA nerd. Like I got to work with people that I had looked up to for years and years.
With their schools, you're saying?
With their schools, at trade shows, Henzo helped me set up my booth,
Right.
and just literally helped me move the table. I was like, sir, you don't have to help me do that. And it's just, what he does.
Just how he rolls.
And, met just all these guys that I was in an entry level sales job and started working my way up and talking to him more and more. And then it was the first big shift was going to the Alabama project with Tom Callis. It's where I met Valor, actually. So first time meeting Valor, hey, you're Easton too.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm getting some.
Cool. And, that was a big eye-opening experience for me with just Tom's perspective and the potential that we have to really, I knew it changed my life and the total direction of it. But hearing how he talked about stuff and just, the impact we can make on the people, our students, communities, that was a really big shift for me. Just perspective change. Because before all of that, it was, fighting, technique, getting better, everything there. And I started working towards this role where I was a partnership manager. So I essentially my job was to go and work with the big call them consultants or business mentors, franchises, affiliations, and I not only did that in martial arts but in CrossFit and general fitness gyms. My largest customer that I was in charge of managing was one of the world's biggest boot camp chains.
What's it called?
Fit Body Boot Camp.
Okay.
So I think when I started working on overseeing that account, they were at right around 100 locations, and they grew to almost 600 by the time I left. So
franchisers or licensees?
Mostly franchises. They had a few licensees and they moved away from it.
Got it.
But that was one where it was just all right, biggest customer, got to do it.
Right.
Their boot camps, not my thing, but learned a ton from them as far as the expansion stuff and what they were doing.
There's things
well.
you can learn, man. There's so much things you can learn from just little pieces.
Yeah, and
right?
that's what it was. I surrounded myself with all of that, and I tried to absorb as much of the knowledge as possible because I knew at some point I would be, opening and running a school. Thinking I was going to be opening the ones before the pandemic hit, but I talking to as many schools as I did and going to visit these places, I saw what people did really well, but I also saw all the mistakes, so just the, not being on top of certain things admin wise, or, simple stuff like, phone calls and follow-ups, just reminding yourself to do it. And I saw the effect of that. But in that position and being surrounded by those people, it was like school. It was like education.
It was an internship.
Yeah. And I was, essentially building out specific reports and workflows, all that for everything that, they were telling their clients to do. So it was, a lot of it was really similar. Same concepts, but different messaging and all that.
All the shit that we as martial artists don't know how to do, right? That you learned that there, I would say, really well. Like when you built some of these reports for us, I'm like, God damn, where'd you fucking learn this? Yeah,
and so so some of it, like some of the stuff I was building towards the end there, before I making the jump to Easton full time, it was a combination of the basic KPIs and metrics that they were doing, but then tweaking it so it was the way that I was doing my own reports as Zen planner and being able to really build onto it, plan, project out and budget all of that, and that I built a version of that and gave it away as content for free because I thought it would help these schools. I just saw every area they were struggling in, I'll just build it for free. You guys plug in the numbers, it'll calculate stuff out. Wrote a ebook on that while I was there. Just got to do so many really cool things that apply to where I'm at now.
So at some point through this, you started getting attached with us in Denver, right? More attached, Not that you weren't before. You were training and yada yada, right? But you were kind of at Hammer, at Centennial sometimes. But there was a shift where somehow the relationship with me, you, and Ian built, right? And I know this is a bad statement. I started to feel, just from my perspective, you became my student, you know, in a way. Like I was like in charge of your training and growth as a martial artist, right? And you and Ian became close. What was this? Where did that?
So I was trying to pinpoint it, and I don't know when it happened. Like I know I was going into Denver for Tuesday and Thursday night classes back when it was still a lot smaller, and you know, some of the original Elevation guys were still there, like Tony and Mercado. But yeah, as far as like when it, you know,
I don't remember it.
It just kind of happened.
It just kind of Which part was first? The training aspect was first, right? Like,
well, so I was going to the Elevation practices for a while. My first session out here, literally like a day or two after moving to Colorado from sea level, you just like, oh, new guy, you should fight.
No.
You know, yeah. And you're like,
and
I
you
didn't
do this anymore.
You made me go with Neil, right?
With Neil. I thought you were gonna say I did it.
No,
okay.
no.
Yeah, I might have made you go with Neil
you
for
made
sure.
me go with the guy,
but I didn't personally do it. Yeah.
Best cardio in the world.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that I personally.
No,
because I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no.
I'm too old for that shit.
But yeah, like you said, I was always kind of around, and then Denver became my spot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was trying to remember too, and I don't know if you can pinpoint when it happened, was like when there was that change in Denver. Like that, I don't know, there's just that intangible thing that's there now, that, you know, thinking back from like when we were first starting the no-gi classes and all that, they were much smaller. There just wasn't that, like, for lack of like a better term, that magic in the air, you know? I couldn't think of when that happened either.
16.
Just 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like, it's just huge change. And during that last time as Zen Planner, I had some really cool things that I'd been working on for years. We did that big event that you spoke at, the ProMat conference with Kovars and all those guys. And that was really like my grand finale, but I knew that, I was leaving before that point. And the thing that, you know, really made me, you know, have the lunch and sit down with you and Mike and let you guys know is, you know, Sheldon. And I talked to you about that, but I felt like I'd been focusing so much time on, you know, learning and, you know, work and all that stuff. And I trained with that dude so much. And like every Sundays, we flow roll together and stick around after. And, you know, after you pass away, it hit really hard. And I felt like, you know, even though I was there, like I wanted to be part of everything more with like the community, the team, with you guys. And that, I don't know, it was something that made a big impact, made me just think about things and realize like, this is, you know, I know this was the plan. It was going to happen eventually, but the time's coming where it's, you know, I want to make the jump and start going towards it.
You took a massive pay cut.
Oh, huge. So not only that, like everything went wrong with the plan. Like I knew that was coming. I prepped for it for over, you know, probably a little bit over a year. Kept setting money aside, had a budget worked out, based on my cost of living and all that with my ex-girlfriend. And the very first week of leaving the job, or like first couple weeks, break up with her, move out of the house, have to move into the one that I owned with Neil, that we were renting out and selling. That immediately doubled my cost of living expenses. That budget went out the window right away. House did not go for what we planned on and ended up getting bought out by Neil. But pretty much like anything that could have gone wrong with that gap year between the end of Zen Planner and the original plan was to open Stapleton, the Stapleton location. It all went wrong. And
we were going to open Stapleton this year.
Oh, we were. I went and visited locations about 2 weeks before COVID with Mike Jr.
Oh, don't worry. Our first course was going to launch April 1st. And then it was like, and all martial arts schools have no money.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and then you finish it off with a nice once-in-a-lifetime pandemic and just crazy.
But we hope once in a lifetime.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm just going to say once in a lifetime.
Once in a lifetime? Yeah. Okay.
Just going to go with
Everyone
that.
keeps saying 2021 is going to be better, and I don't know why they're saying this. There is not a fucking shred of evidence that says 2021 is going to,
Just
fuck.
Positive mindset.
All right.
but
positive mindset is we can handle it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing.
Right.
I did not second guess anything once. Like,
you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't change anything?
No. Like, maybe I would have saved a little bit more money when planned that budget better. But
did your girlfriend break up with you, or you break up with her?
Oh, it was definitely her breaking up with me.
Okay, so maybe okay.
But hey, man, it works out. It's like doing much better now. Like and honestly, like that point, I was jumping onto the meetings with the team that helps across all the academies. I was full time at Denver. When I really got to, and a little bit before that, but really focus on teaching in the department head stuff.
Yeah, man. So from my perspective, just, I think you got the 7:30 at night fundamentals intermediate mixed class. That's just a dead class, right? Like, it was there, but as far as like attendance, maybe 10.
Yeah, I think 10 might have been the highest, but it was usually around like 6 or 8.
Yeah, I was fine with 10. I was like, I look over. And then all of a sudden, it became this like friendly competition between us. Like I looked over and I was like, yo, this motherfucker's creeping on my numbers.
Oh man, there's a couple days where you had a day off where you weren't in class, and I had bigger classes that day. And I'm like, he's not here. This is bullshit.
But that's hard, man. That's hard to grow a class. A normally dead hour class when the advanced class is right over there. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but like I am the head instructor teaching that class. You're kind of going up against me a little bit, where I've been doing it for 10 years at this school, and man, you fucking did it. It was 20, 30 people. Sometimes 40, right?
I think the highest we got up to was 36 for that class.
Yeah, and that's it. We're talking about a class that starts at 7:30 p.m. This is not New York City. Like, that is not a highly attended class. That I was like, yo, what's this guy? What's he doing?
Showing up early.
And tell everyone what that say it.
So obviously I'd been around. I was learning from all these great instructors. I had you, George, and everyone that I'd come up under. And then that time at Zen Planner, I was going to seminars with Kovar and all these guys several times a year. I think like 10 times a year. Right. I was out at different events just learning. So I was applying that stuff, but at the end of the day, like, and this is really one of the most rewarding parts for me, was we had this gap. So there was a half hour where the mat was empty before my class came in, and I would show up a half hour early every time, and I just wanted to get to know my students, and I talked to them, form those relationships with them, and I love those dudes. I was so proud of that, that whole crew, and just watching how far they come. Like, I genuinely felt that, and it was a new rewarding aspect to jiu-jitsu and training that I'd never had before. And just seeing that over time, just, obviously in class, someone gets the technique, awesome, really great job, but seeing them change personally and carry themselves a little bit different, that's what I started noticing. I'd never had that before. Go ahead.
There was a 6 o'clock class that I taught that was intermediate. You would be there at 6:50, and you would catch all those people coming off the mat, and you'd be like, yo, let me help you.
So a lot of them would just start showing up, and I would be there. I'd ask questions and all that, but I don't want to say even use that time, but I would just talk with those students for the 30 minutes in between classes, the ones that were sticking around, because yours was no-gi. Like a lot of them were.
Wanted to do
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. And they were, slowly but surely just coming, and, I was getting to know everyone, and, even have a couple of them coming up to Arvada to help out right now. So, it's like I knew that, my coaches had made an impact on me and had been invested in me in a lot of different ways. And, having it from the other side and experiencing that, it's amazing. Like it's something.
It's so cool, right?
It's just something totally, I don't even know. It's life-changing.
I don't know which one's better.
Which, the fighting side?
Are you winning it or them winning it?
Yeah, it's hard. So I know that so we had the, COVID break, and obviously didn't train for a very long time. I think it was the longest I'd been off the mat since I started training.
Right.
And obviously that was amazing to come back. Like very sore and terrible, but in the best way possible, after the first couple of training sessions. But then, man, when I got to teach the first class at Arvada again, it's like, yeah, I miss this more. Like, it just totally changed it for me.
Yeah, Alex and I had a training session during COVID. That was amazing. Like, I don't know if we were both like in the middle of the struggle. Both of our wives are in the middle of hell at that time in the middle of hell with COVID, because they're nurse practitioners in a hospital. So that I won't say that wasn't really amazing, but a couple weeks ago, I'm just doubling down on your statement here. When I got to like really teach again, and not like, look, when we first opened, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't that fun, right? Like, okay, come in, get out, you train, right? Like, but when I got to fucking teach again, like, teach a class, oh, that was fucking great.
Oh, it was amazing. And so the one thing I'll say, like, it was open mat. I think it was obviously the first step in getting back to feel like
no, I'm not. We can't complain about it.
Yeah, but that whole process leading up to it, and I mentioned this to Mike and Ian before, even before the COVID stuff, and we got there. But there was a time at Zen Planner when, because I had started, it was very small, and there was people that had gotten hired a little bit before me, and around the same time that. They were like me, but from different areas, whether it be yoga, they used to own their own, gym that they had, but they cared about the industry. They were just really, really passionate about helping these gyms because they're part of it, like I was. Mm-hmm. And, they were young and, didn't have the experience of some of the people that were on the leadership team before them. But they came in and they moved into those roles, and that's where like this magic happened, right? We just skyrocketed after this certain point. And a lot of that was, the planning and the leadership team, but like watching that happen with people that were, where it was coming from the heart and the passion for it, and seeing the result of that, there was this like, I'm using the word again, but this magic with it. And I was there, I went through it all. It was that first experience, and didn't really recognize it or appreciate it as much at the time. And then with this and, all the work that, Mike and Ian, Valor, and everyone's put into putting this team together, I started seeing it before COVID hit. And I mentioned, like, I told Mike, like, this is an amazing team. Like, we're going to do great things with all of this. And then COVID hit, and the first week was kind of like, what the hell's going on? What's our plan? What are we going to do? And just kind of process it. But then within a week or two after, we just started hitting the ground running, like planning, how are we going to do it, problem solving. And there was just this flow that happened. And that moment where it's like, even though all of this shit was going on, seeing what we could all do together and how well we worked and just how smoothly it was, just like explaining the plan of how we were going to reopen to, I was talking to Rich the other, weeks when this was happening, and he's out in Singapore now with ONE FC.
Rich Franklin,
yeah,
you're talking. Okay.
Yeah. And I explained to him the plan, how we're going to do these monogamous training groups and pair it by, belt, weight, and we're going to do it for, 7 different academies. He's like, yeah, logistically, that's, I don't see how you're going to do that. This sounds like a nightmare. And I was like, oh no, we have it done.
It's
like,
already over.
We're opening next week with it. And it's like seeing what we actually pulled off. It was just like, I think everyone really felt it and got that feeling of just being pumped and like how well everyone's working together, and just seeing the potential of what we can do. Like this was that first pressure test. And then when this passes, carrying that momentum forward, like, holy shit, man, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah. We thought we were good before. Wait till after.
Yeah. It's just like understanding. And now that I recognize it and, knew that it was happening, I didn't second guess a thing. Right. In the midst of all of this, and just, obviously we were, planning on Stapleton, and then it's like, all right, that shut down. I didn't look for a job once. I didn't even search. No resume getting ready. Like didn't get any of that ready.
Right.
Like this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm with the right people. So
it's the people business. It's always the people business. It's nothing other than that. Like and we say, I mean, the theme, I don't bring it up, that you guys bring it up as the guest. Every business is the people business though. And if you can't grasp that, then you're going to struggle in your business.
Yeah. And like with my personal, really thinking about things just over the years, I look back, and you've mentioned it too. Like all of your friends are from training, jiu-jitsu, fighting. And with the exception of my friends from high school that, I moved out here with, that I'm so close with, that's the case with me. And it was those guys that I came up training with, the fight team back then, my old professors, they're all still people I talk to, all the time. And that's, I love fighting and stuff, but that was my crew. Those were my friends in college. Like that was who I hung out with. That was they're my family. Yeah. And that is, I noticed it with us, and that's what we, with other places, and, it could have been isolated to the fight team and people are close to there because you're bleeding with each other. You're right. All striving for that goal. But we do that and like genuinely, excuse me, do that with all the students. Like we try to give that to them and make them part of it, and that's something that's really special. Especially with all the places I've gone and trained, and people I talk to, that's a very rare thing, and I think it's the most important thing.
It's what we are.
Yeah,
it's what we are. I like to say I don't get money for teaching jiu-jitsu. I'll never take money for teaching jiu-jitsu anymore. You pay a tuition to change your life.
Yeah, man. And if people open themselves up to it and give it a chance, like it's there. Like I haven't seen anyone do like on this scale with this many academies, one team, one, city. I haven't seen anything like it.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see what we can do.
It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks, Chris. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're going to try to get back at these. It's a little crazy with COVID still, but, so tune in Easton.Online. And hopefully we'll get that course out soon, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.